It is the start of a new era in Albany as Kathy Hochul is now the first woman to be governor of New York State. Thank you for joining us tonight for the town hall at 5:30. I'm Kate Welshofer.
And I'm Michael Wooten, live here at the state capitol in Albany. Kathy Hochul officially sworn into office just after midnight. A little bit later, she went back in front of the cameras for that ceremonial swearing in, took some questions from reporters, and then Kate addressed the people of the state of New York late this afternoon.
And the new governor has her hands full already, dealing with the resurgence of COVID and all the battles over things like masks and vaccines that have come with it. And she's already announced action on that front today with a universal mask mandate for schools across the state, one of the priorities she outlined in her inaugural address this afternoon.
These are the highest priorities of my administration in its first days: combating Delta, getting direct aid to New Yorkers more quickly, and beginning to change the culture in Albany.
So you can imagine we have a lot to get to tonight.
Yeah, and joining us live right now is Jimmy Vilkind. You've seen him here on the town hall. He covers the Capitol and state government for the Wall Street Journal. Jimmy, it's good to see you in person. Normally you're just in a little box on the other side of us. So
that's right. Nice to meet you in person, Mike.
Yeah, you too. Let's get your initial just impressions of the day so far. I mean, not just the address that happened at 3 this afternoon, but the swearing in. She took some questions from reporters. What is your initial impression?
You know, I think what is remarkable is that it was sort of straight to the point and sort of no frills. I can remember Andrew Cuomo's last inauguration was on Ellis Island, and there were rented ferries to take people to get there. It was sort of a gigantic production. The new governor said this morning during her ceremonial ceremony that her ceremonial swearing in, that brevity would be a hallmark of her administration. She spoke for just around 11 minutes in the afternoon, straight to the point, announcing new policies and then moving on.
So I want to talk about those policies, but you have kind of policy and you also have style. And you can tell already, even though, as we mentioned, we're just 17 hours into this administration, that things, it seems, are going to run quite differently than the last. So on that style point and on that culture point, what sticks out to you as we move forward?
Well, I think it's also remarkable that one of her first acts was to take questions from the press. Again, that's something without recent precedent for the recent events we've had with new governors. She talked very early on about transparency and how she wants that to be a hallmark of her administration. And she also stressed that she wants to have a collaborative administration. While she was talking about new policies for schools, she stressed that she had been in contact and in conversation with stakeholders at schools around the state. She also talked about things that are needed to take on the virus, how she will be working with the legislature. She then, of course, met immediately with the leaders of the state assembly and the state senate to discuss important policy issues, to discuss how to more quickly distribute rental assistance and assistance for excluded workers or undocumented immigrants in the state. So again, I think that the collaborative tone is something we've heard from Kathy Hochul in the week since we knew that she would be coming online and taking over as governor, but to see not just the words, but the actions to match it were striking to me as well.
So when we talk about those policies, obviously COVID is front of mind right now, and parents, kind of got the answer to the question they were wondering: are we going to have this statewide mask mandate? You also have the vaccination issue. We're already getting some reaction from the teachers union, from some superintendents associations. How is that going to play out, you think, moving forward, with the restrictions that are on the governor's office right now, no emergency powers?
Well, I think that Kathy Hochul, from a standpoint of governing partners, both in local government and the state government, will have something of a honeymoon. And I think that if she makes a push here, if there needs to be a law passed, if there needs to be a decree made, it will get done. It'll just be a question of crossing the T's and dotting the I's, legally speaking. I know that school districts had said that they didn't want to see a patchwork approach, that they wanted to see one uniform policy. And from the standpoint of trying to prevent the spread of disease, if you have one district that has one policy and another that's playing football games against them with a different policy, there's going to be cross-pollination. Of course, we know kids and students are moving about across these district lines. So Hochul had telegraphed that she was going to impose this mask mandate. She has the power through the health department and through its public health and planning sort of regulatory powers. And the vaccination mandate will be an interesting test. Right now, it seems that she's going to be urging school district leaders to make these decisions. But what we heard from both Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins today was that they're willing to work with Governor Hochul to see if a law needs to be enacted that would mandate vaccinations for public school or private school personnel, teachers, staff, etc., that is something that could be tackled relatively soon.
Finally, you mentioned the honeymoon period, and I think that's such a good point, right? And especially coming out of this kind of scandal-ridden administration, this is a breath of fresh air. What do you anticipate? How are they going to take advantage of that to get done some of the things that they want to accomplish quickly?
Well, we know that Hochul is going to be making the rounds of national media tomorrow. I know she's lined up both radio and television interviews to introduce herself to the world. We know that before the week is out, we expect to hear who her pick for Lieutenant Governor is going to be. That again will be another sort of moment for her to be decisive in acting. We're not far off from the 20th anniversary of September 11th, where the governor of New York has historically had a significant role in those remembrance ceremonies, and of course had a significant role in the redevelopment of Ground Zero and the response to those terrorist attacks so many years ago. So we're going to see, I believe, Kathy Hochul in motion and in action. Whether or not there will be a special session of the legislature to enact several laws, I think remains to be seen. If that were to happen, it would likely happen next month, not necessarily this month, according to some lawmakers who I spoke with this afternoon. And Governor Hochul is going to be, as she did today, focusing on introducing herself to New Yorkers, telling people who have not interacted with her about herself and about her biography, her priorities, and again, what she is able to do in the immediate term going forward.
Jimmy Vilkind covers this area where we are right now for the Wall Street Journal. If you don't subscribe, you should, because you need to read Jimmy's reporting. Really appreciate you coming on and good to see you in person.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right. So, Kate, Jimmy and the other reporters here are going to be busy as we kind of lay out all of these kind of challenges that there are moving forward, but also the opportunity for this new governor.
Yeah, they certainly are. It's going to be a learning curve, I think, probably for everybody in Albany. And with now this transition complete, we can talk about Andrew Cuomo's run for governor being history and his resignation really marking the end of an era of political dominance in New York State. As we put this in perspective a little bit, the Cuomo family is really right up there with the Bushes, the Rockefellers, the Kennedys when it comes to America's most famous political names. For 4 decades, the Cuomo name has been synonymous with power and with fame, but now they're being overshadowed by words like toxic, intimidation, fear, and abuse. After the state attorney general's investigation determined the former governor sexually harassed or groped nearly a dozen women, many of them current and former staffers.
The son of a former governor, Cuomo's star got even brighter when he married Carrie Kennedy, the daughter of Robert Kennedy, in the early 90s. A few years later, he moved to Washington, D.C. and was shortly thereafter named HUD Secretary by President Bill Clinton. He then ran for governor in a Democratic primary in hopes of facing George Pataki, the Republican who beat his father. But that 2002 campaign didn't make it past the primary, and neither did Cuomo's marriage. After a few years in the private sector, he returned to politics, successfully running for state attorney general in 2006. And then 4 years later, in 2010, Cuomo beat Buffalo's own Carl Palladino to become the 56th governor of the state of New York, a job he would hold for more than a decade.
And Andrew hoped to be the longest serving Governor Cuomo and wanted to be known for passing progressive laws, addressing gun control, legalizing same-sex marriage, and a measure making it easier for employees to sue their employer for sexual harassment. Instead, he'll likely be remembered for his own sexual harassment allegations. Federal authorities are also looking at his administration's handling of nursing home deaths during the pandemic, and the state attorney general is also looking into the use of state resources for his memoir last year. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo insisting he did nothing wrong.
But I want you to know, from the bottom of my heart, that every day I worked my hardest. I gave it my all. And I tried my best to deliver for you. And that is the God's honest truth.
So this chapter, Michael, kind of goes along with a lot of what's happened in Albany, which people consider to be a little bit sleazy, a little bit dysfunctional. And we know that Governor Hochul today said that one of the things that she wants to do is instill some confidence and bring back some faith in the government in Albany. So certainly a tall order there.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like she's up for the task. We'll see how it plays out. Several people here have noted to me today that for the first time again in more than a decade, this is not controlled by Andrew Cuomo. And of course, you had a long term with his father before that. So definitely the beginning of a new era here at the state capitol.
It certainly is.